So, hello. I see today, at least my piece of today, as a continuation of what I talked about back in October on the Oregon Infant Research Center. I'm Phillip Bennett. I'm a long-time student of Wright's work. I sometimes like to put the date out because it seems remarkable to me. But I first read The Sexual Revolution in 1962. And then in 1963 began therapy with someone trained by Dr. Wright. So, yeah. I read The Sexual Revolution when I was 2, and I began therapy when I was So in any case, a continuation of this talk. And remember, the Oregon Infant Research Center was an attempt to figure out what is a healthy child. Well, around the same time that Wright started the OIRC, my memory, December 1949, around the same time there was a group, not led by Wright, but a group of people who had been patients of ergonomists, who were looking at the same question with regard to teenagers. What's a healthy teenager look like? Wright himself was not shying away, and this ties in very nicely with what Kevin was talking about. Somewhere around 1949, Wright sent the German manuscript of Dein Einbruch des Sexualmorals, what we know now as the Invasion of Compulsory Sex Morality, one of the least elegant titles of any of Wright's works. It should have been the Imposition of Sexual Morality, something like that. In any case, Wright sent this book to a couple in Switzerland, the Grossmans, to translate it. And I was just in the archives a few weeks ago, and I was looking at this English translation. And one of the things I discovered was fascinating. You see Wright struggling with the title. They had their title was The Break-In of Sexual Morality, which is kind of almost literal for Einbruch. Where's my... Dr. Lindemann. What is Einbruch, literally?
Einbruch.
Break-in?
Break-in or break-down.
Break-in or break-down, yeah. So the Grossmans had break-in of sexual morality. And then Wright had the Invasion of Compulsory Sex Morality. You flip the page over, and he had all these different titles. He was clearly struggling. He had check marks next to some. He had question marks next to some. It was fascinating that he was trying to figure out what's the best way to title this book. But what's significant is that he wants to republish this book. And this is in '51. And this book is very clear on its position on teen sexuality because it's about the Trobriand Islanders. And among the Trobrianders, when kids reach the age of puberty, and Kevin mentioned this time period of 12 to 15, when kids reach the age of puberty, they engage quite freely in sexual play, including intercourse. And in fact, in the villages, there are huts set aside for the kids to go and play in. And then they eventually find someone who sort of makes sense, and then they go on and they become sort of monogamous for life. It's not compulsive monogamy as we know it in the West. And so here Reich, at this around 50, is still thinking this way. And though he is purging the text of its former Marxist lingo, so wherever the word communism appears, he strikes it out and puts in the word democracy. He still is embracing the notion that there's a connection between capitalist greed and sexual repression. Because if you read this work, one of the key things among the Trobrianders is there's a subset, the ownership class, so to say, the chieftains. And their sexuality is very different from the sexuality of the general folk. Their marriages are arranged marriages, and they're arranged around economy. There's trading in yams. So people store up these yams. You know. So if you've read the book, and contemporary anthropologists who critique Malinowski still discuss these rights of the accumulation of yams, etc., etc. So in any case, I think I see what I'm about to share as a continuation of this puzzlement over what's a healthy sexuality look like. First in infants, last year's presentation, and now in teenagers. Now my able assistant will pass out to you a handout which is going to make my talk a lot easier. because I'm going to talk about a particular historical moment that ties in very well with what Kevin was talking about and ties in very well with the contemporary scene and sexuality. Next time, my able assistant, she too will speak, maybe on education. Did everyone get one of these handouts? The side that I'd like you to look at is the side that has at the top Albert H. Crombie. The reason for the, did you get one over there? The reason for the size, I was originally going to project this on the wall, and then I was talking to David Silver, he said, hey, what the heck, that's print it out. So, Albert H. Crombie. I want to introduce the players. And that's what this sheet is, this side of the sheet is about. And then I'll give you the brief chronology, and then I'll go into some detail. Crombie was a right-wing Christian anti-sex moralist who founded a group called Youth Problems out in Ohio. And he wrote and published these little pamphlets. The plain truth about juvenile delinquency was really about his program. And I grew up, when I was growing up, there was all this talk about JDs. I don't know if that expression is still used these days.
I have a JD card.
Juvenile delinquent, you belong to officially juvenile delinquent.
And Harrison Belton.
And he published these little pamphlets, Thinking and Growing, Decent Living, How Emotionals Grow. And what these really were all about was how to convince young people to remain abstinent until marriage. That sex belonged only in the confines of a heterosexual Christian marriage. This should sound familiar, since that is indeed, was the government policy until maybe still is, because I don't think all these laws have been undone, which I'll talk about later. So Crombie wrote these things. I find it cute that he says that these pamphlets were written by a group of fine associates who represent the three religious faiths, Protestant, Catholic, and Jewish. That's kind of funny. You clearly want to separate the Protestants and the Catholics. Crombie also wrote a book called Communism and the Moral Breakdown in America, which he published in 1955. This book is fascinating. Half of this book is devoted to the communist conspiracy organized by Wilhelm Reich to stop Crombie. And the other half is devoted to the Better Business Bureau of Columbus, Ohio, saying it was infiltrated by communists. So you can see where Crombie's head was at, and you'll see why he did that. What do you mean, my friend? Yeah, they were all in the FBI. So the next name that you'll hear a lot of, we have a wonder. What do you need? It's on the back side of that. It should be, unless you got the original. There you go. The wandering psychoanalyst. The next name that you should know about, forgive me, is Alan Frankel. Alan Frankel was the director of a psychological center out in Des Moines, Iowa. A young guy. He goes on to get a PhD in psychology some years later. But at this time, he'll play a role, as will his brother-in-law, Sal Alpern, who's an optometrist. I mean, it sounds like it's a cast of characters for some weird independent film. And then there's this woman, Helen Haskell. Now, none of these names should mean very much to you, but they're all very, very important in the story I'm going to tell. Helen Haskell was a school teacher here in the city, and she was in therapy with one of that core group that Reich had trained, who were active in the city in the 40s. And these are some of the things they wrote, and then you'll hear more about this fear, the pit, and the snare. If you turn the sheet over, this is the rough history that I'm going to go into, but I'll be skipping into the present. The rough history is in 1947, Frankel contacts Reich. Now, he wrote Reich saying, do you have a vegetotherapist who is willing to come out and live in Des Moines, Iowa and do therapy? And Reich writes back and says, you know, there's one guy, and I'm curious as hell as to know what the one guy is, who might be able to do this, but, and then Reich writes, and that even he won't go to Des Moines. And have my suspicions who that one guy might have been. So Franco's writing to write, well, this was not at all uncommon. When you look at the correspondences that Mary Higgins has headed, all kinds of people were writing to Reich all the time. I mean, Reich was well known and well appreciated in certain circles. So here's this young psychologist out in the middle of nowhere writing to Reich. At the same time, and independently, Crombie, remember the guy, one of those sheep, he gets the Junior Chamber of Commerce. Now, when I see JCC, I always think of Jewish Community Center.